eventually you starting Icon, but you got exposed to cryptocurrency through the investment that you guys made in this crypto exchange, which is it Coin One or okay.
Yeah,
So like,
one.
so
Yeah.
that's how you learned about it. And then you got exposed to Bitcoin and blockchain technology. And this was obviously super early days. Right. And I feel like in life, there's usually like one or two pivotal moments where an opportunity is put in front of you, and then you can either go right or you can go left. And then you're at like this fork in the road. And depending on which path you choose, you end up down like completely different. You end up having a completely different story and completely different outcome, right? Yeah. And a lot of times, even in that moment, I think you don't really necessarily even realize that it's a pivotal moment, right? Like when you're actually making that decision. But I guess either with the benefit of hindsight or maybe at the time you did realize it was a huge opportunity, like how did you kind of think about, because like, and I guess it's like, what made you want to start Icon? And also like, how did you think about that decision at the time? Was it a feeling of like, oh my God, blockchain is like going to be the next huge thing and it's going to change the world and I have to be a part of it? Or was it, or like, did you know, or like what made you kind of want to go down that path, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, when I first went through the Bitcoin white paper, I had no idea what it actually meant. And
you at least read the white paper though.
I think, yeah, I mean, I read the white paper and I didn't fully understand. I kind of understood, but I didn't fully understand it. But, but what was good was that it was intriguing, right? It was intriguing for me to dig deeper into the blockchain technology. And, back in the days, like there weren't as that much resources, like, like there were maybe 2 books on Bitcoin. One was, I remember, like a digital gold, and the other one was like the age of the cryptocurrency or something like that. And so there were like a couple of books. So I read both of them and I've learned a lot. And then that kind of intrigued me to dig deeper. And I think it's just that drive of wanting to learn about something, right? Like this blockchain concept just grabbed my attention, and I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to do more research. I wanted to, and the more I told other people about it in my company, they were intrigued. They wanted to learn more about it. So there was a lot of like positive energy around this new, financial infrastructure that we were kind of envisioning. And we wanted to, and we were, one of the first in South Korea to like understand the power of smart contracts, distributed ledgers, how we could, create so many new applications and such. So it was just that kind of pure excitement that kind of got me into it. And I think, like everything else, like when you're spending, your free time reading a lot of white papers, a lot of, just, investing in all these like, cryptocurrencies that you've never heard of, to, wanting to go to these conferences with only, men around. It's just like, that's like, you want to, that's like the industry you wanted, you're already spending so much time in that industry, like you wanted to do something there, right? So yeah, so it was very, very exciting times. And one of the things that really, really got me excited was the whole concept of ICO. So ICO, that stands for initial coin offerings. And we actually helped from our cryptocurrency exchange Coin One run Korea's first ICO, which was Cosmos blockchain. So Cosmos is,
Yeah.
Adam. One of the co-founders was this guy named Jae Kwon, and he came over to Korea. Our team met him. So they allocated some portion of the Atom tokens to the exchange to do an ICO. And they raised, I think back then was around 16 million, 13 million, 16 million. From our exchange, we did maybe 2-3 million. I can't remember exactly, but what was amazing was that you and I we ran the IPO process back in the days, right? And there's just okay. I mean, from a regulatory standpoint, we understand that you need to file all these like paperwork. That takes a long time. There's approval process. But even on the book building side, right, you have to get all these investors lined up, do the reverse Dutch auction of like getting people in your books. You need to all these like legal papers working to issue shares out to all the shareholders. It takes months to like accomplish that, right? But the power of smart contract, you were able to raise millions of dollars through the internet without a single piece of paper by issuing something called tokens, that acted just similar to shares in matter of minutes, right? And boom, you got your shares. And, when you've experienced that, it was just so powerful how you were able to raise capital through the internet in just seconds. And I was just like, and I wanted to do that so badly, right? I was like, oh man, I just need to, like, I don't care if I don't make any money. I just need to go through that process and do it for myself and experience that for myself, right? Because I've been in banking. I've done the IPO process. I know like how that feels like. And this new process just felt so magical to me that I had to run through that process for myself. And, so I literally dedicated, a year, just preparing for that. And, we raised, I think we raised about $45 million in like 24 hours. And that was just like the, one of those other magical moments of, in my memory, because it's just so awesome how, that we were able to do that with the power
45
of
million. You were saying that's for the Icons ICO, or?
Yeah, for
that's
Icons
amazing,
ICO.
man.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I kind of was thinking about as you were telling that story is just the importance of having intellectual curiosity, right? Because you came across this Bitcoin technology, which is new, and then you're like, let me go read the white paper, which like a lot of people won't even bother to do. And then you read the white paper and you're like, oh, this is like intriguing. Like, let me go and like find the only 2 books that exist on this and let me read that. And then you just start going down this rabbit hole. But I think a lot of people just won't do that, right? Like they don't have the intellectual curiosity to like go and learn more and dig deeper and become, until like you keep doing that until you become, somewhat of a subject matter expert on it. And so I think that's like a really important quality for, people who want to be successful, right? And then also obviously like it's easier to be intellectually curious about something if you can find something that you're like really passionate about. Like you said, like going to a conference with all dudes, like I thought that was hilarious. But like, yeah, like that is when you are doing stuff like that, it is how you can tell that, oh, you're really passionate about this thing. And so I think that's amazing. And then I guess in terms of the ICO itself, because obviously I know back in 2017, like ICOs it was like all the rage, right? And there were so many coins that were going, doing these ICOs. I think I bought into a couple that like no longer exist today. Which I'm sure there's a ton that don't exist. I mean, obviously, you guys are still around. What? And I haven't really heard about ICOs like really at all ever since kind of like that the last crash in the crypto world. So is that like, because to your point, there's a ton of efficiencies in raising money that way versus like in a traditional way. So is that something that you see coming back eventually, or like why haven't we seen any ICOs? Is it just like people have like this bad taste in their mouths from all the crappy ICOs that they bought into, or like what is the deal?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. So I do think that ICOs will come back in a
Mm,
different form. Uh, Back in 2017, 18, that was like the first wave of ICOs right after Ethereum was, this was like the golden era. It was like very new. There weren't too many, cryptocurrency, right? Back in the days. This is like when things were starting off. Today, there are now meme coins and all these other like, different projects. Now there's like millions and millions of coins. So it's hard to differentiate yourself. Back then, I think it was much easier to stand out, to differentiate
mm,
yourself. Um, and I think we were all dreamers back then, and none of the infrastructure was built. So that's when you were able to raise quite a bit of money with just a white paper, and there were a lot of bad people too, right? A lot of people, they lied about what they were going to build. They raised money and they
yeah.
ran off with it, right? So there were a lot of scammers, but like we were kind of more genuine ones that kind of stuck around. We're one of the older projects. I think we're 8 years into this. And we have a lot of other projects that came after us that are, doing quite well, but a lot of scammers there today too. But going back to ICOs, ICOs are, just got a bad rep because of a lot of
Yeah.
the scammers. I know personally a lot of people who lost, substantial amount of money through, bad deals, bad projects.
Yeah, me.
I do, yeah, I do, I do think, there needs to be some level of investor protection. But at the same time, there's also like the SEC went a little bit too hard on these projects, which is also one of the main reasons why ICOs kind of
Mm,
came to a halt, because it just became way too risky, especially for American entrepreneurs to, raise funding in this manner, right? So, especially from the retail, because once you touch retail,
yeah.
it becomes, the SEC could come after you. So it sort of changed to a private deal fund, right? Like similar to now it's more of a safe plus warrants. So there's a token warrant attached to a
Yeah.
fundraising round. So, and they don't issue it to, to the public. There's other forms such as like, you've heard of like airdrops, fair launches. So there's different like forms that developed out of like
Yeah.
the ICO days to, for people who got a bit more
Yeah.
creative. Um, but I do think like the ultimate form of fundraising from retail will come into play. Um, Unfortunately, I think it's going to look a little bit more like the equity crowdfunding regulation that you see in
Mm,
the US today. So, um, yeah, we'll
yeah.
see how that
Why do you
goes.
say unfortunately? I'm not familiar. Like what does that mean?
Because there's going to be a lot of restrictions, and once you have a lot of restrictions, there's a lot of barrier, right? There's a lot of hurdles that, as a investor, if you want to participate, you have to be like a
Okay.
accredited investor. You have to be, yeah. So
You have to
there's
have a certain net
limitations, right?
worth, a certain income level. Like it's all the
Exactly,
criticism about like
exactly.
how all the best deals are not really. It's not democratized, and it's only like if you're already rich, then you can buy into it. If not, then you can't. Basically.
Right. But, I think it's funny how in the real world, we say that, oh, we got to democratize investments, but the reality is all the retail investors follow all the VCs anyway. So, so it's not
Yeah,
as what it
for
seems,
sure.
I would say. Yeah.
So I guess the other thing I'm really curious about then, because I feel like starting a crypto project, you would think that you need to have like you need to be like an engineer, or you need to have like a pretty technical background, right? Or like, sure, any former investment banker can be like, oh, ICOs are so cool. I really want to, run my own ICO. But like, to come up with, at least to come up with sure, anyone can put together like a bullshit white paper that they have no intention of building, but that's not what you guys really did. So like, to actually come up with like a legitimate idea of, what you want to build, like, how did you even come
Yeah.
up with the idea of Icon, and how did you have like the enough technical know-how, I guess, to do something like that? Because like, like, sure, you hear about all the Silicon Valley stories, like, oh, it's so cool to start a tech company, whatever. Part of the reason why I'm running Wall Street Mastermind is probably because like I'm not technical enough. I'm like, look, what's a business that I can start, right? But I feel like for you, you didn't
Yeah.
let that kind of like not being an engineer, for example, you didn't let that limit you. So how did you kind of, I guess, come up with this idea, and also how did you overcome that hurdle, so to speak?
Yeah. So, um, I think everything comes down to, I think, sales, right? So you have an idea. I think you got to be smart enough to realize the opportunity. You got to have the uh, ambition to, go after it, take that initiative, have that hunger to, learn about it, spend, invest your time every time that you have into learning about it, right? You can't just be
You
not
can't be
getting into something
casual.
that,
Yeah.
you know, you can't just,
Yeah.
you got to be an expert,
Yeah.
right, in that space. So, yeah, so after you learn about it, you have to be able to convince like other people, right, other engineers to
Mm.
join you. You got to be able to find good engineers, and be able to, convince them that this is the future, that this is going to be a very exciting project. We're going to do a lot of cool things together, and I believe in it. They believe in it. We build a team. We go for it, right? So you build a team, and then the cool thing about, I think, blockchain back then, how we got started was, initially it was just kind of more of a we didn't even have kind of a cryptocurrency component in the beginning. It was just more of a research team, right? It was me and a few other guys and a few engineers that kind of came together, and we were learning, digging deeper into like the technology. We were trying to reverse engineer like Ethereum, because that's the only thing that was available out there. Um, so like kind of breaking it apart and seeing like, okay, how does this like blockchain thing work? How does the Bitcoin blockchain work? Why does it work like this? How do we make it better? And then, we started learning about it, and we started going out there, and, because we had a lot of clients in Korea that from the banks, you know, a lot of these bank, executives and managers were curious about blockchain technology too, but they realized there's no resources in Korea about blockchain. So they come to us and they ask us like, hey, can we learn, can you teach us about blockchain? So we actually held like a seminar, like a paid seminar. Like I think we charged them like $10,000 per person to do like a 1 week seminar on blockchain, right? And these were like financial institutions, and they would pay that money to come and learn about blockchain. We brought some of the key like CEOs from like the Ripple, the head of Ripple in SBI Ripple Asia, from Japan to do one session. We brought somebody else to do another session. So we kind of created a program, and then a lot of people were like interested, right? They wanted to do some like proof of concepts, and we back then there weren't. This is before like kind of IBM Hyperledger or R3 Corda, like enterprise blockchain. There was only Bitcoin and Ethereum. That was it, right? Like today you see like a lot of these like new layer one technologies. It's all great, but back then there was like nothing. So we had to like create something from scratch, like build it. And that's how we started doing like one or two projects with these like universities and like insurance companies, with banks. And they, it was great. Like everyone was like super excited about this new technology. So that's how we kind of started a enterprise blockchain service business. And then we built this technology and we realized, hey, why don't we make it into a public blockchain, a cryptocurrency project with the same technology? So it sort of all sort of flew in motion where, one sort of came after the other. We thought, hey, if we, take what we have and we, add cryptocurrency to it, we think we can make something that is even bigger and better and cooler and that's more futuristic. So, that's what we kind of expressed in our white paper, and we were able to raise, good amount of money to sort of, take that into the next level. Fast forward for 8 years, unfortunately, this whole enterprise blockchain space didn't really, work out. Like R3 Cordas, I think they're gone. They went bankrupt. IBM Hyperledger, you don't hear about them anymore. So, and then the good thing is like we were able to pivot and do other things to stay relevant and to survive. But this space, that's what's so cool about it too, because it's so dynamic, right? It's just you think that this technology would be used for something, and then now it's being used for something else. And I think in a few months, I'm sure we're gonna have something cool, like a new and cool, come out again, right? So, and we're trying to build something cool and new too. So, we're all trying to kind of stay ahead of the curve and be innovative, and I think that's where all the fun is.